institutions, to connect experts, and allow them the space to engage together, to provide technical assistance, to think about how to move the needle forward on some of these big picture questions you've all been asking. So we have two people who are leading the focal groups. I'd like to invite Ms. Trinh to the stage. She's the Green Growth Focal Point in Vietnam's Ministry of Planning and Investment, and she heads up the LEDS Global Partnerships Finance Working Group, which we've talked a lot about today in the context of implementation. I'd also like to invite to the floor Benoit Lefebvre. He's the Director of Energy and Climate Change at the World Resources Institute, and he's also the head of the Transportation Working Group. Thank you, panelists. Just to get the conversation started, maybe I could ask Ms. Trinh to give us an overview of what's going on in the finance working group. What are the questions everyone's grappling with, and where are you going with them?
Thank you, moderator, and also thank you, my colleagues, because I have the chance to share with you what we have done. So after the first session, I would like to know how many of you here, after our presentation and discussion, would like to join our LEDS Global Partnership? So thank you. That means that we are very attractive, and then we are also want to join the efforts to combat the climate change. And coming back to first, I would like to share you from the perspective of individual. Because for this partnership, we also mobilize the participation from individual organizations and also from research institute, from governments and agency. So we think that it is a very diversity for us to share to achieve the peer learning and the optimal objective of this partnership. And from my own experience, from the first day that I joined the ASEAN Partnership and Global Partnership event, that I am the only one in the ASEAN to be the planner, working in the planning sector. Because at that time, all the people are come from the climate and environmental sectors. So, but after 3 years, then our ASEAN partnership had a lot of involvement from the financial people and also planning or economic ministries and also researchers. That means that our work are attractive and we can mobilize very wide participation. And now I will come back to my role as a member of the Global Working Group on Finance and also the co-leader for the Financial Working Group in the Asia region. And during last year, we have two important events. The first one is that we organized very successful event of catalyzing, promoting, assessing to green finance for supporting, for implementing green growth and low emission development strategies in Asia region. And it was organized in Hanoi, Vietnam. And then this already share a lot of opportunities for people to know how they can access to resources to implement green growth and low emission development strategies. And one unique thing that Vietnam can do and also mobilize other Asian countries, that we both combine not only at the national level people to participate in that forum, but we also try to mobilize support, financial support for the local people, especially in Vietnam, that those people not have much knowledge on green growth and also low emission development, as well as many tools available many ways, many places, and also financial resources availability over the world for them to implement the real activities at the local and community levels. So I think this is very successful. And we also have recent event in Yogyakarta that we have the launch of a very important publication done by OECD, where they have the assessment for green growth situation in the Southeast Asia country, and they also propose some recommendation for us how to pursue the low emission development and green growth in Southeast Asia. And we think that this combination is very important because OECD combine a lot of rich countries or developed countries, and they want to know what is the situation in our region, and we should get these opportunities for them, for us to use the support from developed countries to based on this research to fill in the gaps that they already identified together with Southeast Asia countries. And I think this is the two important events that the financial working groups already done during the year. And as a result from these two important events, that we know that we have to admit ourselves that the involvement from the private sector is still very limited, especially from the commercial banks, and we still lack of effective market instruments like green bonds or green stock markets that we can mobilize for, resources for implementing green growth strategy. And from that inspiration, Vietnam, on behalf as the co-chair for the financial working group, already proposed a concept note for continue an important event to catalyzing investment from private sector, and we focus not only to international or foreign investor, private investor, but we also want to bring knowledge and also sharing experience among countries. Actually, currently we just focus on the Asian region, but now from this important moment, I think that we should also expand to the global level, because we think that we should mobilize foreign investors, but also how to catalyze the domestic private investor, so we can together combine the resources for implementing green growth strategy. And one more thing, last but not least, very important thing, that in 2015 we also should try to have more interactions among working groups in the global forum, as well as among working groups, because so far we are quite loose, as from my observation, very loose. And we should also have some benchmark or some indicators that assess the effectiveness of the working groups. For example, from the working group on finance, we should think that how many initiatives that we can support our member countries to gain more or additional financial resources for them. Because in the partnership we have both recipient countries and also donors. So why don't we use this forum to create any project-based or any program, regional program, to support for the developing countries like us to access to more technology transfer or financial resources. And during this negotiation, we see that GCF is also one potential resources for us. So maybe one indicator for the working group is to build ready for the people, and also build the accreditation criteria for all the national implementing entities in developing countries. So I think some indicators that we can also discuss later on this. And on behalf of the financing working group in Asia country and also member of the global forum, I'd like to welcome all of you to join the effort with us and also have more contributions to our effective work. Thank you.
Thank you. Benoit, would you like to talk a little bit about transport?
Yes, so thank you, my dear colleagues, thank you, Jane. Thank you to the LEDS Secretary for organizing this event, and thank you for the government of Peru to receiving us here, because it's very, very great for all of us to share with you what we are doing through this global partnership. So I have also my question for you. How many of you do more than 30 minutes to go to work or to go to school or university. More than 30 minutes to go. And 1 hour, that's double. And how many of you find that exhausting or would like to reduce this time? All of you. So that's a bit what the LEDS Transport Working Group is about. Transport is really the blood of our economies. It's really something that has a very clear impact with the quality of life. So it's really it's a key topic for this LEDS, and in LEDS we put low emission, but we put also development, as this has been discussed before. Transport is one of the key sources of CO2 emission. It's more than 23% of CO2 emission related to the energy consumption. But it's also the one who is growing the fastest. So we really need to do something for transport, both to improve the quality of life and to reduce the energy emission, the energy consumption and CO2 emission. So it's a problem, transport, but it's also a solution. And it's a solution because transport has a huge potential, a huge GHG mitigation potential. So it's possible to reduce drastically the CO2 emissions that are coming from these sectors. But it's also a solution because low carbon transport improve life. Low carbon transport save money. Low carbon transport improves the air quality. It reduces the impact on health. It reduces the impact on mortality, morbidity for the young generation. So I think that transport, one of the key messages is that transport is really one sector where both the sustainable development agenda and the climate change agenda can come together. So what transport can bring to this discussion or to this negotiation is not only a potential of reduction, it's also this message that we can have a better life with lower emission. And that's what we are trying to do in the Transport Working Group. So how do we do that? What do we do exactly? Because I really like the first question on, okay, what do you do exactly, please? Because this is blah blah, what do you do? So what do? We work at 3 levels. Global, regional, country. Simple. At the global level, we do 2 things. We do knowledge management and diffusion. And we do knowledge management and diffusion with 2 things. One is webinars. So we have a sort of conference where we share on internet. It's free to participate, just highlighted, you connect, it's easy, and you have someone from a country, or from an expert, a teacher, a university in all language. So we really try to do that in English, in Spanish, in French, sharing information, sharing knowledge. We created a LEDS transportation toolkit. So it's a website where you can find everything on low carbon transport. And it's from data, from tools, from case studies, from a roadmap, how to do things, etc. So that's 2 things at the global level for knowledge management, knowledge diffusion. At the regional level, we also do 2 things. It's easy, 3 levels, 2 things each time. So at the regional level, what we do is we organize workshop, training. So we invite people. We are working with the different regional platforms, with the LAC platform in Latin American country, with the ILP in Asian country, and with the African platform in Africa. So how does it work? In Asia, for example, it's very clear. The ILP, the Asian LEDS platform, identified priorities, identified questions that are coming from countries, and they ask us to design a 1 to 3 days workshop where we will invite people to help, to teach, to train countries, to help countries' leaders, decisioners, government, national and local, but also private actors, to design policy, to design instrument, to design initiatives. And the second thing that we are doing at the regional level is community of practice. So we started with the LAC platform, and now we want to create that also in Asia. So we created with the LAC platform a community of practice. We launched that at the beginning of this year, and what do is more or less a group of people that it's very nice. It came after one of those workshops, and people were saying like, oh, we want to continue this discussion, it's very helpful, that we are learning something, so we don't want to stop here. We said, okay, let's create a group, and then it came a community of practice, which looks very VIP, but it's in fact very easy to participate. And it's just a group of people who want to share together, who want to learn together, who want to live this peer-to-peer learning. So we are organizing different, it's a monthly call, and it can go on internet or just on phone. It's also very easy to participate. Last point, what do we do at the national level? And so it's really come to some question that we had at the beginning. And I will give you one example. In Peru, here, we are working in Peru with since 1 year with the MTC, the Ministry of Transport, with MINAM, the Ministry of Environment, with MEF, the Ministry of Finance, with MINEM, the Ministry of Energy, and we are helping, supporting the policy-making processes. So we are providing input, helping them, and we tackle different policy-making processes. First, it was the GHG inventory. So we partnered with local partners, with US EPA, and we came all together to work on the GHG inventory. And we came also with this idea that to do an inventory of GHG emission, it's nice, it's important, it allows Peru to report to the UNFCCC officially, but at the end, we can do more with all those data. So we work with MTC, MINAM, with all those actors, decisioners, in order to help them to create a platform, an institutional and technical platform, in order to have a sustainable way to collect data and to manage those data. That will help those governments, national and local, to design better policy, to design more low carbon policy, because they will have the same data, they are going to share the same database, so that will help them. We helped also the ministry those ministries to work on their climate action plan, and then on their NAMA. I think that, I don't know if all of you know, but Peru submitted in June the transport NAMA. A NAMA is this nationally appropriate mitigation action. Basically, it's a policy, it's a low carbon policy on transport, and the government of Peru went to a NAMA facility, a fund with money, and said, look, as Peru, we have a NAMA, we have a policy, it's a great policy, and we are asking for money for support. It's a very competitive process, and Peru won money. Peru will receive $9 million to support the implementation of this policy. And again, there we came with the LEDS Transport Working Group, plus GIZ, plus Transitemos, plus the PUC University here, plus many actors, and we came with this beauty, which is, and I stopped there, which is LEDS. It's a natural platform. We are able to work with everybody, and that's the beauty of LEDS. We are creating a collaborative space, and that can be very useful, instrumental to help good initiative, good willingness to make great projects implemented, and so really to help to change life, concrete daily life of people in a low carbon way. That's what we are trying to do.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite to the stage our third panelist, Nicholas Harrison. He's the Senior Consultant in International Climate Policy Unit at ECOFIS, and he's working on subnational integration, so things at the city level, at the state level. He It's very welcome, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what they're doing.
Thanks, Jane. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late. Very quickly, yes, the Subnational Integration Working Group, one of the 9 or 10 now working groups we have. How many? Six. Right, 6. Over. Exaggerating. Probably one of the youngest working groups within the partnership. We came into being, I think, last year in January. In response to, you probably heard a lot about, with the international process, some of the difficulties with so many governments negotiating such a large international deal. This has gone on for decades now, this negotiation. A lot of people now pinning their hopes on the role of subnational actors. This is cities, regions, local communities, in playing a much stronger part in mitigating climate impacts and greenhouse gas emissions. So you probably heard a lot of activities that are going on here in Lima and elsewhere in the region and elsewhere in the world today. The reason for the creation of our working group was not to duplicate all these wonderful efforts that are going on around the world, but really to bring together some of the institutions and organisations that are helping to support those cities across the world. And there are a number of them working already, organisations, collections of cities, large cities, mega cities in all parts of the world, and smaller cities and regions around the world, helping them to talk to each other, learn from each other, and collaborate when they have good ideas that work, such as bus rapid transit systems, as I'm sure Benoit's mentioned, transport solutions, or all kinds of solutions for mitigation, that they can learn from each other, learn from each other's mistakes as well as successes, and scale that up. Now, what we realised is there's not a role for the Let's Go partnership here to get into this space per se, but what we hear from these actors that are working directly with cities is quite often they face a range of barriers that prevent cities from pursuing a lot of the mitigation actions they could be taking. Now, cities are key influences on mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. They have certain controls over certain issues which national governments sometimes don't have, so they can control things like planning and building policy. They can control things like transport plans at a local level and the management of things like waste. So mayors or subnational governments sometimes can control things that national governments don't. And perhaps more importantly as well, cities and subnational governments work a lot closer to the people and the communities and the businesses that government policy directly affects. There's a saying in China, an old saying that the mountains are high and the emperor is far away. And I think that's common in many, particularly large countries, where cities and subnational actors sometimes feel very far from major national decisions that are made by politicians or heads of state, far away. And sometimes it has a negative impact, or sometimes it prevents cities doing good things, cities and subnational actors doing good things. So we discovered that there's this gap, a need to encourage and enable stronger integration, what's called vertical integration, or integration between the actions of national governments who are trying to reduce emissions for the global picture and also at a national level, and also there's cities and local communities that are working hard, they're coming up with new solutions, they're closer to the problems and the solutions on the ground. There's a gap in between. And there are a number of barriers, and they range from the lack of the finance or getting access to finance, the sheer capacity, so skills and knowledge, or political dysfunction. Sometimes you have the mayor of a city is in a different political party to the national head of state, or perhaps is a political rival, and so you get these things that they don't coordinate and align very well. So there are a number of barriers that we set about, so we thought it would be good to have this working group starting to look at these barriers, to work with both the subnational governments or the institutions that support and represent them, but also to work closely with the national governments to identify how to remove these barriers, to get out of the way for those cities and subnational and community organisations that really just want to get on with the good mitigation actions that they're involved in, or to encourage national governments to support and empower their cities and subnational governments more clearly. So practically what we've done is we've convened some of the people that are working in this area, so the national governments and these associations that support subnational governments. And I'm talking here of people like, you may have heard of the C40 cities, R20 regions, R20, Clay, United Cities and Local Governments, these big international associations and collections of cities that are working together to learn from each other. And we produced a series of knowledge products, just mapping out where the barriers are, what the challenges are, but what the potential is too. And in that process, we've also then identified a range of good practices that are taking place. So in cities and subnational governments, where they are working effectively with their national governments in all different parts of the world, from Vietnam to Rwanda to here in Peru is one of our good practice examples. And so this is really joining the dots and saying now to national governments around the world, think about, when you're thinking about trying to raise your ambition and your commitment to the international process, or when you're trying to deliver the mitigation potential that you've committed to, think to working more closely with your subnational actors. Help them, enable them to do the new things, the good things they want to do, and remove some of the barriers that enable them to do the things that will help ultimately both contribute to this global problem. So the working group, much the same as the others, we convene in telephone calls, we have some webinars, we use all the tools in the sort of international trade for sharing this information at a high level. And we're hopefully pushing this issue further forward so that international organisations, national governments begin to acknowledge a lot more that they can't do this alone. Top-down policy making on mitigation action works to an extent, but you have to really have a much more interactive dialogue and enabling relationship with your subnational actors to really release the mitigation potential fast enough. So that's what the working group exists to do, and we're just feeling our way, and mostly it's about initiating conversations between people on the internet or by telephones, getting people into calls, getting the right people talking to each other and learning from each other. And I'll leave it there. That's the overview.
Thanks, Nicholas. Three very good examples of how we work in practice on particular issues, but I think Nicholas opened the floor perfectly. He wants to start a conversation, so now's your chance to do it in person. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand and we'll get the microphone to you. We don't have any questions at the moment. Maybe I can start the conversation with a question to the panelists. A lot of what we've been talking about today is how do we help governments make the case for mitigation when they're also challenged with delivering growth and a better living standard. What would you say would be the type of technical support or learning that would be most helpful from your perspective in making that business case? Maybe each of you can give us a go and we'll see if we have any other questions.
Thank you. So it would be a good example of a gender in green growth. Actually, last month I also attending a climate responsive budgeting for Asia region. And you know, we also mentioned about the gender issue in the climate budgeting. But in the whole workshop, there's only one quarter, only 1/3 of the people are women. So that means that we think that gender is also a very important issue in the green growth. And today I also always the first one to answer the question. And coming back to how to improve the mitigation actions in the countries, I think that the awareness raising is very important because in my own country, when we first joined the global effort to pursue the green growth pathway, and we have to consult with the local people. And when the leaders at the provincial level, at the local level, understand the benefits of pursuing green growth, and then they will support it, and then they will, sometimes initially we have the top-down approach. And when we show the figures and show the benefit of pursuing green growth, and the people at the local level know that they will have more economic benefit, then they will follow us. For example, in our green growth strategy, we have some goals or some targets for reducing emission from the energy sector. And then with support from some NGOs, local NGOs at the commune level, and then they show the people how to use effectively the electricity. And then for each month, the household know that they can save money from paying for the electricity usage. And then from that, they reduce the use of energy, and then they see the benefit. And from that, they expand to the school, when the people will save the water and also save the energy. And then from that, they expand to prepare the green growth action plan at the provincial level. And then I think this is a good case for us to see that we need top-down approach and also bottom-up approach. And in developing countries and also planning countries like Vietnam, then we need the political support, very strong commitment, as well as awareness raising for the local people with very specific support, and then we will help the people to follow the mitigation path. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. I think, I mean, we faced, really, this is a very important question because it was really a question for us how to make what we are trying to do very useful, efficient, relevant for our target audience. I think, so there is two things. Like, what we are doing is really working on the what to do, how to do it, and why. So what to do, in fact, it's quite easy because there is already a lot of source book, video, people are already educated on that. So it's the what to do in the transport sector is more and more well known. So why is very, very important because to have clear why I will do a low carbon transport and not a highway, it's very difficult and it's key because it's a political debate, so you need to argue with the other minister, with the other people, and you need to convince citizens also that this is a good option. And then the how to do, and that's where we are focusing. So how we do that? We had exactly this example in Asia. So the Asian LEDS platform, ILP, the Asian platform of LEDGP, asked us to do a 2-day training on how to do a BRT, a bus rapid transit, so like the one you have here in Lima. So we spent 2 days in Kuala Lumpur in June training people on how to design a BRT. It was very technical, etc. People were very happy, but they were saying, yes, but we need something more. We need to convince. No, we know what to do, how to do it. We need to convince, more or less the answer was we need to convince our bosses. We need to convince our elected representatives that this is the right solution. ALB, the Asian platform, came back to us saying like, can you help us to design another workshop on the why, on this argument. So we did in November in Indonesia a workshop, again 2 days on co-benefits. What are the benefits of a BRT? How we can assess those benefits? What has been the benefits of the bus rapid transit in Lima, in Bogota, in all those countries that have developed a BRT? And we came with numbers, story, case studies, but also methodology. How you can assess the improvement in terms of air quality. How many jobs are you going to create? How many lives are you going to save? How many time of travel are you going to reduce? And I hope that it was useful. We understood that it was useful to the participants, but that's how we try to address this why, because it's a very, very important question. Okay.
So, really on the business case, yes, the business case at a national level and sub-national level differs sometimes, but what we're seeing is some common threads through what are the benefits of a green economy or a green growth approach. And a lot of the time the conversation is about either creating new jobs and new markets for products to generate economic development, or it's about being more resource efficient, so making savings or reducing risk. And these are some of the key drivers, and they're very attractive to politicians, decision makers at both national level and at sub-national level. So to give you an example from a case study that we looked at in Bangladesh, an NGO, local NGO, came up with a solution for, in a local area, for turning putrecidable waste, so organic waste, your vegetable peelings, this kind of thing, that usually had to be dealt with by the municipal waste authority at cost to that municipal waste authority, so the leadership of that town. With a growing population, that cost became increasingly burdensome. You had to find places to deal with it. There are also public health issues around smell, this kind of stuff. So this NGO came up with a solution. It's a common solution we're seeing in many places now, which is in engineering ways to get local communities and local businesses to collect that waste differently and then transform it into a product that could be sold. And this involved composting. So horticulturists came in, they worked with them, found a way to compost this waste in a new way that could then be resold back to farmers at a cheaper price, so that they wouldn't have to then pay a lot of money for expensive external compost, so they could put on their land to grow crops and vegetables for their families and their communities, or to sell to market and generate further income, perhaps create further jobs. So this was a very nice model, fit very well, because it's also reducing emissions. It's helping to create a few local jobs in the community. It's helping the mayor of the town because she's saving money on the costs that they have to find where to put waste. And also it's helping generally improve health because you have fewer risks, public health risks, rats and pests and this kind of thing. Really nice idea. Now, what happened next was that how do you then scale that up to the national level? And with the help of some outside partners, the idea was to create a training centre nationally to then bring different leaders and operational staff from local authorities and communities to one place where they could be inspired by this model because they could see the numbers. Okay, that saves me money on my budget. That also potentially creates new jobs. And it's also going to help with my public health issues, which are getting really out of hand because the city streets stinks and we're getting a lot of disease as a result of this problem. So it's establishing then a training centre, some investment by the national government in establishing a training centre that then other cities can come to be inspired. Then when they're inspired and made the decision, we're going to try it in our city or our local community, they could then send local people to come and learn how to package, how to create the compost, how to write their business models and start it. And this was a very nice, neat way that the national government could then enable these sub-national actors with community businesses to scale up this activity across the country, contributing to the country's mitigation aims and also creating new jobs. Now, there is another side to this story which hasn't been told previously, which is sometimes there's a lot of talk about the creation of green jobs. We have to be realistic. The creation of green jobs sometimes also means the destruction of not so clean jobs. And so on balance, sometimes it can mean you lose jobs in a sector, and it's not always a net gain. But in many cases, we're now beginning to understand where the sweet spots are, where the good practices are that do lead to a net increase in jobs, which is obviously a big tick for national governments and a big tick for local governments that are trying to create jobs. But the final piece in the puzzle here is also at a sub-national level, city mayors, they understand sometimes that there's this global problem with climate change. They see it's affecting them. But they think, well, we're such a small part of the puzzle. Why should we put my political investment or my financial investment of my taxpayers into these actions? It's a bigger problem for the big emitters, you know, the Europeans, the US, the Chinese, or whatever it might be. What's a much stronger narrative at that subnational level is the adaptation, building resilience, helping to reduce the impact of roadside emissions in somewhere like Bogota, where the roadside emissions were so bad, but then with a little bit of an analysis, finding out the source of those emissions was just a small number of old vehicles, and by changing policy, taking those vehicles off the road, you're preventing a whole bunch of school kids not getting sick, so they can then go to school. That's then contributing to the economic development of the future, and all these what are termed broadly as co-benefits. But quite often, it's these co-benefits that are a real reason to do these actions. And if we link activities that deliver these things like new jobs, health benefits, helping to improve resilience to climate impacts, so hotter climate or wetter climate for farmers or for local cities, they can also then help contribute to this bigger problem globally by reducing emissions. So back to the waste example, that's also helping to reduce emissions of methane when you're composting organic waste in a different way, and it's not just rotting, smelling, and it's digesting in a better way. It's also reducing the release of greenhouse gases, so it's contributing to this bigger picture. So there's a lovely synergy here in that we can marry these things together and get these kind of win-win solutions that benefit everybody. So thinking about this integration between levels and working together and across communities as well in the different sectors and stakeholders. And that's the last piece really, is the horizontal alignment between the private sector, the businesses, whether that's a small business at the local level or a large international organisation that's working at a local level in the country, plus government, plus the civil society and all those actors together. So aligning horizontally and vertically. It's not just about climate, this is true for any area of pursuit. This is not a new idea, but there's an imperative to do this for climate change very urgently. So we've got to sort this out very quickly. So we're finding some of these gaps in the work of the working groups, and we're focusing in on them and seeing how we can push this forward faster and deeper globally.
Thank you, Nicholas. I think what you should give them all a round of applause. I've been told, I'd like to thank all of the panels. It's been amazing to see the passion you have for this work, and I think what they're showing you on the stage here and what you saw in the previous panel is why the LEDS partnership is so good at what it does. And I've been told that I need to draw to a close for the next session. But what I would like to ask you to take away is that the LEDS Global Partnership, it's a collection of 140 countries and organisations. It's a collection of cities. It's people who are passionate about what they do. It's people who can help you answer questions about why you should be working to address climate change, what works, and how can you get it done. These are people who can really help you locally to make things change for the better. I think it was Benoit who said, better life with less emissions. I mean, that's what